$368 million per year, simple yet incredibly effective landing page and funnel strategy. I'm going to be breaking down this funnel step by step in detail for you, but not only that, I'm going to be sharing the key consumer psychology principles and foundations behind this as to why it works. And of course, as always, how you can apply the same thing to your own brand. I create these videos so that e-commerce brand owners can learn new strategies they can apply to their own brands to help them scale to 8 figures. And this is exactly what we do for our clients. Just to show you some proof for a brand that you work with, a quick refresh here on Shopify. You can see the past couple of years, just over $26 million in revenue. We do this for our clients. We help them scale to multiple 8 figures. If you're interested in that, there's a link down below. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So Noom.com is a health-focused brand. And just looking at their ads, you can see that there's been ads been running since October 25th, 2020, right? Almost 5 years. And all these ads are being driven to this page. And this page is a quiz. Quizzes are highly effective at converting cold traffic into customers. And there's really 4 psychology principles as to why. The first is personalization. And when you have personalization, it's always easier to sell the solution. The second thing is consistency. Now, there's this theory around consistency where we as humans, we want to be consistent with the actions that we've taken in the past and the labels we've assigned to ourselves in the past. So if we ask a qualification question in the quiz and someone answers and labels themselves, then they want to be consistent with that later on. And we'll see how this is important in just a moment. We're getting them to say yes, and because of that, we are getting commitment bias. The more commitments we have, right, the micro commitments lead to bigger commitments. If we can get someone to say yes to a small thing, and then a slightly bigger thing, and then a slightly bigger thing, and then a slightly bigger thing, we can ask them for the purchase and the sale, and it's much more likely that we're going to get that, okay? So those are really the consumer psychology principles at play here, and I wanted to share those with you before we actually dive in, so you can keep those in mind as we go through this, right? Now, this quiz itself is quite a long quiz, and looking at this, I was quite surprised at how long it is and how high the conversion rate. And going through this quiz myself, I was actually surprised at how long it was. I'm very curious as to how they're keeping people throughout the whole quiz process until the end, not getting a ton of drop off, right? So if we actually go through this quiz and we go through these questions, I'm actually going to show you some key areas right here, right? If I just select some random ones here as we go through, you can see there's checkpoints, right? This is the first thing I want to talk about is checkpoints. We're really glad you shared. Weight loss is an important goal. So what this does is it basically gives them a sense of achievement. So the consumer psychology principle here is more like gratification. By adding this checkpoint, it means that they've achieved something and they're more likely to continue with the process, all right? So if I just go through the next questions here, again, another checkpoint, right? Very quick after another checkpoint, it says you're in good hands, Jordan, right? It includes my first name, which is personalization. If we go back to personalization, right? Easier sell. And also I've added something here around after the customer enters their name, use that, right? Use the name when asking other questions. Once you have data that you can use in the future, use it, right? The more personalization in this, the better, right? By the way, if you're a new viewer here, my name is Jordan Hayes. I actually run a marketing agency where we help e-commerce brands scale their revenue profitably. Now, if you're running an e-commerce brand, you're doing over 100K per month in revenue and you're facing challenges with scale, maybe your ads or your funnel is not working as well as it used to or should be, or even if it's just a lack of time and resource to put into scaling this part of the business, then that's exactly what we help with. So down below this video, there'll be a link to book a call with me. We'll have a conversation about your business, learn more about the challenges, your objectives, and see if there's a fit for us to work together. Worst case scenario, I can provide some insights as we're seeing with our other clients to help you at your current stage of your business. And as I mentioned, this is for brands who are doing at least 100K per month in revenue and they need help with scaling and obviously want to scale profitably. And in the way in which we help brands scale is we provide services across both customer acquisition and customer retention, done for you services which are completely hands-off. We take care of everything for you. And that includes media buying, CRO, landing pages, ad creative, email marketing, SMS marketing, overall growth strategy, lifetime value optimization, all that stuff, okay? So with that said, let's get back to the video. Another thing that they're using here is social proof, right? We've helped 3.6 million people lose weight, right? That's a lot of people, right? A lot of social proof, a lot of trust that's being gained in this stage, right? So enter some more data, and then again, more checkpoints, right? And the checkpoints are also serving as a way to educate people on what Noom actually does and how they can benefit them, right? So Noom creates long-term results through habit and behavior change, not restrictive dieting, okay? Got it? Next thing, right? So we just go through the next questions. I'll just select wedding, right? So we'll select this. And guess what? It asks me, when is the date of the wedding, right? They're getting a ton of data points. And guess what? All this data is being saved in a database, right? And they're using that data in post-purchase email flows to make sure that they can follow up with emails that are personalized to get people to convert that didn't convert on this page, right? So if we just set, let's just say a random date for this wedding that we're going to, and how fast do we want to get to the goal? Let's just say slow and steady wins the race. We have another checkpoint here with social proof, right? A review, Mike, and I've entered male, right? So I can imagine if you entered female, it would show a picture and a review of a woman, right? Next step is actually analyzing and calculating the weight loss pace. So there's actually like a little bit of weighting here. So we're getting even more commitment, more buying, right? The more time we can get a customer to spend with us, the more likely we are to actually, again, get them to continue completing the quiz, but ultimately get the sale that we want, right? Now they're asking me for my email. I say, see my result. And then they're basically predicting when my outcome will be, right? If we look at the offer equation from Alex Hormozi, you remember at the top of the equation, we have the likelihood of achieving the desired outcome, right? So if we give people a date at which they can achieve their desired outcome, it's much more powerful than just promising it and not giving an end date. Now, what we're also doing is we're trying to decrease the time delay as much as possible, right? By saying you're going to be 65 kg by 22nd of August, right? Basically, you're going to reach your goal by the wedding. Personalization, right? And they show this very cool chart that's personalized, right? They're obviously coding this in the back end with all these different scenarios, but the wedding 65k, but you see here that the current weight that it entered and the goal weight on this chart and the wedding here as well, it's all personalized, right? Now, if we continue through the process, we go to the next stage. It asks me to enter my name, and then we go into the next part of the quiz. So it's not even done yet, right? It's behavioral profile quiz, and this is about finding out about my behaviors. Now, just going back to some of the quiz CRO, when you're implementing a quiz for your own brand, you definitely want to include the following things. You want to include a progress bar at the top to show that they're moving through the sign-up process, right? Show that they're actually making progress. You want to add graphics, as we saw, to break the monotony of just asking questions on a blank background. You want to add the estimated time to complete the sign-up process, right? Again, giving an expected time frame and outcome for this quiz as well is very important. You're going to get more completion. Adding benefits at the start or throughout, as we just saw, are those checkpoints. Adding a customer review quote, again, we just saw that. We already went through this one about personalization. Asking a qualification question, which we're going to go through in just a moment. And we're going to see how that consistency bias comes in. And then we're going to talk about looping as well, right? If we ask a qualification question and we get an answer to that, it means that we can loop that same response back in the future to make sure that the customer is going to be consistent with their answer, all right? So a very, very smart approach is going on here. But basically, now I get questions about behavioral profile, right? So they're asking me a bunch of questions about, what I want to do. So we just, these are selected at random. We just go, I would love my body the same no matter my weight, etc., etc. I think about my weight all the time. And guess what? A ton of data points on the customers that we can then use to have personalized email flows that we're going to send afterwards. Now, we just go through these questions, and guess what? All of these are consistency as well, because all these questions, the customer is labeling themselves, right? Labeling is incredibly powerful for consumer psychology and persuasion, right? If we label someone, or if they label themselves, even better if they label themselves, they're much more likely to follow through with that label that they've given themselves later on, right? So we just continue to go through these questions. Then it gives me a profile as a peak performer and next steps. It tells me like what I can expect. Then if we click next, we have more questions, right? About weight loss profile. So we just answer these questions right here. Again, more labeling, more consistency. Here's the thing, again, another checkpoint, right? And it gives us some more education, right? They continue to position themselves as the authority throughout this process, right? We just go through more questions here. We have more charts based on the questions I just answered about the behavioral profile, the weight profile, all that stuff. It's actually updating the prediction of when I'm actually going to be able to achieve weight, right? So previously, I think it was like the 18th or something later in August. Now it's the 7th. So what they've actually done here is very, very smart. They've anchored my desired outcome, my time delay. And what they've done is they've basically lowered it, right? After they've answered more questions, they've lowered it. And even if the 7th of August for me is a long time, it's faster than the initial time frame that was set, and it feels much sooner, right? It works the same way as price anchoring. It's time anchoring, I guess, is what you could call it, right? So we just go through the rest of the questions here. We just yes, no. And then again, more information, more education, and positioning as the authority, okay? Another checkpoint here, right? We see there's checkpoints very, very frequently. I don't really know how many questions each checkpoint is. It seems like it varies quite a bit depending on the answers, but you can see that there's quite a lot of them to keep the customer engaged and let them know that they are progressing through, all right? So here we see more education around what Noom is, right? Why Noom is different. And what this is doing is, again, just educating the customer on more information about the brand, the product, the plan, and down here it says building the plan. So it actually seems like it's actually being built and personalized when they could probably just show me this much faster, but they're using this space and this time as a way to, just tell me more about how Noom is different, right? Answer these questions thus here, and guess what? It lowers the time frame again. The anchor has been moved again, and this is so, so powerful, all right? So we've spoke about that before. We click next and we go through. It asks me more questions. Again, getting a ton of data on these customers. Just go through these ones right here. Checkpoints, other things that I want to achieve. More questions, and this was kind of like a quiz, and it's basically saying if I'm right or wrong, right? So this one's saying you're right. Gratification again, right? Also right, great job, a strong foundation. Where did you hear about us? Some attribution, smart. And then they're analyzing the demographic profile, and what they're doing is they're basically asking more qualification questions here. So think about like a doctor, right? If you want to position yourself as an authority, what you do is rather than just giving someone a solution, is you ask them questions first. You get to know about them, you get them to qualify themselves, you get them to commit and spend time, go through the questions, and then what you do is you build a personalized plan, a personalized diagnosis, prescription. If you think about a doctor, that is going to help them achieve their outcome, right? You're much more likely to be invested in that than if someone just says, hey, take this pill, right? Yes, it could have a ton of reviews and science and whatever, but just notice how this is much more powerful. Now, a caveat here is you don't need a personalized product to have quizzes, right? We've seen other brands like Woofs, like the Farmer's Dog, where you can just ask them questions to see if the product will be right for them, right? You can get very creative with quizzes. It doesn't have to be something that is super personalized, right? The time anchor has been lowered again, which I find extremely, extremely interesting. And it basically says try Noom for 2 weeks. This is like a pay whatever you can, right? So it's a 14-day trial. And it's basically pay what you want, right? They're giving us some options. We choose $3, and then it's taken us to the checkout page, right? So notice how much time we've invested by the time we get to the checkout page, right? It highlights the plan. It repeats everything we just spoke about. And it says you get a 14-day trial with full access for the price that we chose. And then afterwards, it's $129 for a 2-month plan, right? 2-month minimum. So AOV is high, which is great. Great offer structure. And from here, we check out, etc., etc. This is really the funnel that I wanted to show you. And hopefully there's something you can apply to your own brand. Come to Noom.com, go through this experience yourself, see what you can apply. You don't have to make it as long as Noom.com, but I think you should apply a lot of the same principles that we went through today, just to make sure that you get a high completion rate and a high conversion rate when you ultimately present the offer, okay? If you are an e-commerce brand owner, you're doing over 100K per month, and you are hungry for scale, you want to scale your e-commerce brand, you're tired of plateaus, you're tired of working with people who don't deliver, then my agency does exactly that. We help brands scale to 8 figures, and from 8 figures to multiple 8 figures. We do that through a range of done-for-you services across both paid new customer acquisition and customer retention. If that's something you're interested in, link down below to my website. We can have a chat. We can have a conversation about your business, understand the current challenges, your objectives, and see if there's a fit for us to work together. All right, that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.